My name is Dr. Kevin Pecca. I wanted to make a podcast that exposes people to the true miracles of life and health. All the guests on this show have been specially picked because they bring something positive to the world. They have some of the most amazing and inspiring life stories. These people have a passion for living, healing, and leaving the world better than they found it. There is something inside these people that made them keep fighting through all the tough times, even when people told them it was not possible. They carried on and made their lives beautiful again. And now they are sharing their experiences with the world. This is the Expect Miracles podcast. Enjoy the show. Kris Timpert is a Czech practitioner out of Morristown, New Jersey. She is the only level 4 Czech practitioner in the state, and above all, she is an amazing healer. She has been through some extraordinary adversity in her life and has always found a way to battle through and come out the other side of the tunnel. She is an amazing person with an extremely inspiring story, and it is an honor to have her on the podcast today. Please welcome Kris Timpert. So, Kris, where are you from?
I'm from Warren, New Jersey.
Warren, New Jersey. That's great. And you go to high school in Warren?
Yeah, I did. I graduated from Watchung Hills Regional High School.
That's great. And what were you into growing up? Were you into sports? Were you into other things?
No, I was into survival.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, I originally started in Warren, New Jersey, but when I was 4 years old, my mom ripped me out of bed in the middle of the night and put me in a car with my brother and sister with a man I recognized but didn't know. And we drove to Michigan. And
really?
I didn't see my father after that. And on the way to Michigan, I got my first beating from this gentleman. Then I ended up living with my mother in Michigan, and it was a very abusive childhood. In fact, I didn't even have a childhood.
What do you mean you recognized him? You said you recognized him?
Yeah, because my mom, she would take him out on dates, I guess, or she would go to the movies with him and bring me. And then I would come home to my dad and I'd call him the broken man because his car broke down once. And then I was getting smart. My dad would say, well, who's the broken man? And then my mom stopped taking me out with them.
Right.
So I recognized him, but I didn't actually know what was happening. But my mother was actually pregnant and she was leaving my father.
Okay.
She packed my brother and sister up in the middle and took us.
So you guys moved to Michigan?
Yeah.
And so was that like a weekly thing, getting beat up like that, or was that?
Oh, it was, you know what? I will tell you that as a little kid, I think I was so busy surviving, I blocked a lot of stuff out as a young person. Yeah. But yeah, for me, my stepfather was very verbally and physically abusive, and I was a real smart ass. It's very, very interesting that we're talking about this right now.
Yeah.
And I'd like the opportunity to bring this conversation back down the road, because
Please do.
The behavior, it's very interesting that what happens to us as little kids, we develop a certain behavioral pattern that then we become unconscious to. So for me, when I would get physically abused by my stepfather, I would disassociate. I would leave my body. I would kind of leave my body behind me to take the abuse while I saved my soul, in a sense. Yeah. So as I got older, I then used my body as a weapon. I was always a very aggressive woman, and I would just go attack people and set people on fire, basically with the mindset like, screw everyone for giving me such a horrific childhood, and using my body like a Sherman tank, still having no respect for myself and being completely disassociated from my body. I mean, this is just a realization I'm getting now as a 55-year-old woman. But, you know, those events where I stayed in Michigan, I guess it was about 3 years before I nearly died eating baby aspirin because we had no food. There was food for dinner, but you were never allowed to take anything in the house. And I was very hungry, and I came across some orange baby aspirin in the closet, and it tasted really good in the medicine cabinet, I should say. And so I kept going back until it was gone.
And how old are you at this point?
Oh, I was probably 6 years old, something like that. Rushed to the hospital, stomach pump, life saved.
Wow.
And then it was after that I don't remember how it happened, but at some point I got permission to go visit my father. So he sent me an airline ticket, and I flew by myself back to New Jersey again to my dad. It was July. I had a long sleeve sweater dress on that was full of holes. My teeth were rotten. I was black and blue. I came to my dad and I'm like, please don't make me go back. And so he was like, you don't have to go back there. And so I didn't. I never went back.
Wow.
My mom made one phone call saying, where's Kristine? And my dad said, she's not coming back. And well, that was that.
Wow. And so your younger siblings, they were your half siblings and your stepfather. Okay.
Yeah, she had 2 children with him, but I have an older sister and an older brother.
Gotcha. So what was like after that moving to New Jersey? Was it much better?
Well, yeah, at first it was really awesome because I got to eat whatever I wanted, and I could go to the food store and buy all the Yankee Doodles and all the garbage food I wanted, and I shopped through the Sears catalog, and that's back when they used to have, there were Garanimals, they were called. And I didn't know anything about matching clothing, so I would match the zebra shirt with the zebra pants kind of thing. Anyway, but no, life was really good until it became, my dad was an alcoholic, and he started drinking when my mom left, and he was brokenhearted. And so his drinking, it just started to get where dad wouldn't come home, and then somebody would be knocking on the door. I would open the door. It would be a police officer. The officer would say, your father has been
incarcerated,
and they would take me and bring me to like a foster home. Wow. And so things like that would happen, and then I would get really good at not answering the door. But, my dad just became, his alcoholism and his drinking, it became, dad was, would either be drunk in this chair or in that chair. And and then that was just a completely different situation. So.
And that was like that all through high school too?
Oh, yeah. In fact, my dad, he drank so much that I stopped buying him alcohol. He used to have it delivered. So he would have delivered 12 cases of beer a week, a couple bottles of hard liquor that he never talked to me about. I mean, it got really bad. He was a carpenter and he got hurt on the job at one point. And so then he couldn't work anymore. And he ended up winning a workman's compensation case. He got like a pile of money.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, he passed away of cirrhosis.
Yeah.
I buried him on my 25th birthday.
Oh, man. So after high school, with all this going on, did you have a feeling like, I need to get out of here, I want to get up and leave, or did you stick around?
No, I mean, when I graduated high school, my dad had just lost his license for I guess it was the second time or the third time. I mean, the last time it was for 10 years. And I was the only person that lived with him. So I wanted so much to go to college. I was in theater at the time. So I did so many plays, and I always got the leading role, and I had a wonderful British accent at the time, and I really, really loved it. And at one point, I was asked to join the group, but I was too young. My dad said no. So there was no money to go to college. I had never been encouraged, and I barely graduated high school by the skin of my teeth. Yeah. And so it was just
that's an accomplishment in itself with all the stuff you went through. I mean, I don't know many people that would have been able to do that.
Yeah, I was definitely resilient. And, it's an interesting thing. The thing I learned as a kid is, like I said to you, my stepfather would do god-awful things, and I would call him a chicken head. I would make fun of him, and then he would just beat me more. But I had to continually create situations so I could show everybody, oh yeah, look how tough I am. Look what I can do. I can do it. So I carried that dysfunction for, a real long time.
Wow. And so, Chris, what put you on this beautiful healing path you're on now? Obviously, that was the start of it, probably.
Well, I mean, that was just, I guess, a necessary set of experiences I was supposed to have to make me who I am today. It's the only way to really look at it. But what it was is I was really dysfunctional, did a lot of drugs when I was younger, smoking cigarettes. And when I met my husband, my former husband, he was very athletic, and he was a football star, and he was well known, and he looked like Mr. Wonderful. And so he taught me how to exercise, helped me quit smoking, and he's the one that really got me into fitness. And so what actually catalyzed everything is that I got myself into great shape, and I was always really awesome at walking on my hands. Nobody could do it better than me. Yeah. And after I had my son, I went out to visit my brother, and I got on my hands to show him how good it was, and I felt something funny in my neck.
Oh, really?
The interesting thing is I probably subluxed my atlas, but there was no way to know that at that time. And I had this pain in my scapula. So anyway, I ended up going to a doctor, prescribed physical therapy. They did neck extensions every session, week after week, until I lost the use of my left arm.
Wow.
I started getting very scared. Anyway, long story short, 2 cervical discs were shoved into my spinal cord about 3/4 of the way. Wow. And surgery became necessary. So I had major surgery to remove the C6-7 disc and to have a piece of my hip bone put in. Wow. And that was one thing. But then, of course, trying to get in shape and recovered from it took 9 months to recover from that. Yeah. And then, of course, Dan, Mr. Fitness, said, we got to get in shape again. So let's start squatting. And so he loaded up an Olympic bar. The total weight was 100 pounds. And I said, well, I've never squatted like that before. And he's like, well, all women start with this weight. It'll be perfectly fine.
Oh, man.
Anyway, long story short, on the 3rd rep, a thoracic disc popped, T6. Anyway, so I kind of fell apart physically. And I really wanted to get in shape. And I was doing that body challenge, Body for Life. It was a Bill Phillips challenge. So I was doing like 100 crunches or more every single day. And I was determined not to let this get me down. So I pushed myself till I bent over one day when my son spilled some cereal and I blew my low back. And so I was in a place where now I was in pain all the time and I had to figure it out. So that's what started everything, really.
So where did you go from there?
I went to every doctor you could think of who all told me that there'd be good days and bad days for the rest of my life. And I was like, no, that's unacceptable. So I thought, well, I'm going to become an ACE certified trainer. And so I pursued that path to do that. And
when you say that, do you mean like people you see at the gym, like a workout trainer or?
Yeah, at the time I thought being ACE certified was like, the MD behind your name. I thought, wow, that's awesome. So I studied a year and then I went into NYU in New York to take the test and I'm taking this multiple question test and I get down to this one question that says, one day Fat Susie doesn't show up for her workout. One of the trainers tells you that she's drinking, whatever it is. Do you tell that trainer it's not their business? Do you have a drink with Fat Susie? Do you whatever? It was like some stupid thing like that. And I just lost it right there because I had just put a year of effort into learning about the body and it was a joke. The test for me, anyway, it was an absolute joke. But because I did that, I got a little brochure in the mail from the Czech Institute and it was about this DVD called Equal But Not the Same about training women. And so I ordered it and when I got it, Paul's lecture was so awesome that I applied the knowledge and within a year I was awesome. My back was amazing.
Wow. So you were just watching the DVD and doing this at your house and doing all the exercises and you pretty much were able to heal yourself?
Well, it was the anatomy, he was lecturing on anatomy, on this and that. But I just, I did what he said. And that's when I said, I'm going to meet him. And I met him in New York and told him that I was going to be the best Czech practitioner he ever had. I was like, I was so determined. This is what I'm going to do.
And what did he say?
Oh, well, I'm sure he was, I'm sure he was used to that stuff, He was very happy to hear my story and that he had helped me and very excited, of course, as anybody would be for a student that was going to come follow them. And back in the day when I did this, I was very fortunate because every class that I took, Paul Chek was there. You can't do that today.
No,
I got to be with him for every class.
Now, I heard about Chek probably within the last year. I'm very excited to learn about it. I don't know much about it. For those who don't know who Paul Chek, right?
Yeah.
Who is Paul Chek?
I can just tell you, I don't know his full history, but he basically somebody that spent a lot of time studying a lot of people and how they heal the body. And then putting a bunch of people's information together, if I say that right. And he kind of figured out his own way. I know he ran a physical therapy center for a while and he was outstanding at getting people better when nobody else could. I mean, the guy, if you look into all the things he's done, the books and the DVDs and the courses that he's designed, and I mean, it's incredible. I mean, his offering in getting people better through biomechanics it's just incredible.
And he's helped some world-renowned athletes like Laird Hamilton and many other people, right?
And still works, I believe, with Laird Hamilton. And I had the pleasure of spending a whole Friday evening with Danny Way, the skateboarder that jumped the Great Wall of China with a broken ankle, by the way.
That's right. You were telling me that.
Yeah. And I had the pleasure of being with Ryan Hughes, the motocrosser. He lacerated his liver on a fall.
Wow.
Sean White came to train. I think at one point he broke his jaws. But every time I would go out to California, there was always somebody, this is at the time Paul had a really beautiful institute in Vista. I mean, beautiful gym. He kind of moved around. It started in Encinitas and then it went to Vista and then the institute closed down. And now Paul has a house that he uses as an office and kind of has a couple bay garage set up as a gym. And he doesn't do so much. The classes, they get brought to other locations now.
Right. Now, there's different levels to the Czech practitioner things. And you are the only level 4 certified Czech practitioner in New Jersey. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And what I was pretty much amazed with your initial consultation is the in-depth process and exercises and ranges of motion and muscle symmetry that you use. Can you go into like what's different about your analysis and how in-depth it is and what you're looking for?
Oh, sure. Well, although I got a lot from the Czech Institute, I've also spent a lot of time with physical therapists and other people and had so many clients over the years to work with. So what I found is that helping people get out of pain, you got to look at a lot of things.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why the first thing I honestly look for first is I sit and talk to somebody because I want to know. I want to know all about their life. I want to know how their relationships are. And I try to do it in a way that isn't so obvious.
Right.
Just so I can get a kind of feel for where they are emotionally. And And I don't mean to sound crazy talking like that.
No, I'm a firm believer in that as well.
Yeah, you never know. Some people, and it's shown, the science of the brain, people that tend to hold on to anger, have a lot of different kind of issues. So I do associate emotional pain with physical pain.
Yes.
But then I do also look at the posture, and I know there's a lot of professionals out there that, they'll say posture doesn't really have anything to do when it comes to pain. But I think it's like, I don't think you can really say that across the board. I think sometimes it actually does. So I look for C1 subluxations, but mainly the first thing I do is I look at the posture, and then I measure the muscles to see what's going on with them. Are the chest muscles too tight or the back muscles too weak, etc. When I'm done, I'm able to identify the posture they have, see where the problems are, and then I get into the nervous system, into how what I call their software is wired. I want to see, can you squat? Can you lunge? How do you do it? How is your brain? Are you guarded when you pick something up? But it's just really a lot. I try to look at every human being as much of a wide lens as I can.
Yeah, you look at people as a whole. And I love how you brought up the emotional stuff too, because I think personally, in my opinion, that 100% can cause pain and suffering. If you're holding on to all that anger and your body's tight and tense, I think it definitely does translate into the muscles, into the posture. So some people probably come to you and they're really open about that stuff, but you also have the other end of the spectrum where people probably don't even want to tell you anything. How do you unlock that?
Oh, well, that's a great question. I appreciate that. A lot of people don't come open. A lot of people come saying they're open, but as soon as you want to meet them that way, they close up really quickly. This is from Paul Chek, you study all your biomechanics, and then when you get to level 4, he says, just forget everything I ever taught you.
Really?
Yeah, because all you really need to do is create, and again, I don't want to sound crazy, but you create a loving environment for that person. You just have to love them. You just have to make them feel safe and make them feel valued and guide them, and they, heal themselves to some degree through their positive outlook, and you're cheering them on, and it's just amazing, the results. So I try so hard to let people know how passionate I am about helping them, how I'm there for them, and I try to make myself available however I can for that person. And when I'm with them, I'm giving them 150% of my attention and my time. And that's how I try to get through to those. And then over time, when they get exposed to that, that's when they start to open. And that's when all the changes start to happen. But they almost always leave me than when they came closed.
You can feel that in your consultations, and definitely you care more than a lot of people do. And it's very good to know. And you do feel better leaving your office, because it's an amazing feeling that you are going to do anything to help that person get the best possible life that they can live.
Yeah. And how lucky I am to have you.
Well, Chris, why were you seeking out upper cervical?
Oh, because I'm a fusion. So, I mean, now let me tell you, when I did one of the Chek classes, Chek level 3 is all about the neck and the shoulders. When I did that class, I was still traumatized over having to have my spine fused in a surgery where I had to sign a paper saying, yes, you could be paralyzed in this procedure. So I didn't really understand myself well enough to see that I was like blocking the information. Paul would talk about the neck and it would just kind of creep me out. Like I kind of blocked it out. So I got through my level 3 class and learned a lot of good things, but I was never going to, Paul, he teaches Atlas adjustment and different things to physical therapists and professionals, but I was not in that, didn't have that education, and I was never going to use that information. But being a fusion, what happened is over a period of time, all of a sudden one day, I don't know, I can't even explain it. I went to move a certain way in a stretch and I couldn't move my body. I was like frozen.
Wow.
And it was the most bizarre feeling, and it just felt like something was off. And then I went to a physical therapist and a regular chiropractor, and I thought I knew enough about things, but I just started getting more pain in the body, and nobody could help me. And then I went into a workshop where Paul was teaching in New York City, and I told him about it, and he just looked at me, and he's like, it's your Atlas.
Wow.
You're a fusion. Go see an upper cervical, and okay, my bad. I guess I wasn't, I just wasn't, whatever it was necessary, right? So that's when I first went to a different upper cervical. And anyway, the person just was manipulating my neck so much that it started to become more traumatizing just to go there. And then, of course, I found Dr. Banich and then you.
Yeah, she's amazing. I love her to death.
Yeah, and the method you have is with the other particular chiropractor, I was watching people have to constantly go for visits, and it was like so-so with the results. But when I started referring to Dr. Banich, it was like, bam, instantaneous. People 90% better. I mean, know. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's what I love about the technique. I don't know another technique chiropractically that can do so much for a person in one visit. because essentially if you get the upper cervical spine back in line, the body starts to heal. And if they hold for long periods of time, you don't need another adjustment and the body's healing itself. And it's amazing what you see over time. People get their lives back.
Yeah. It's really wonderful. I know it, and it's then everybody knows when their atlas goes out.
Yeah. Yeah. You start to know your body and it's great stuff. Saved my life too. So.
No, right. Exactly. So it's good stuff. So you make me look good.
Well, you make me look good too. So it's a great relationship.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
So what are the follow-up visits like after you do the initial consultation? I know everybody's different, but what are some of the areas you have to work with people in long-term?
Well, everybody's different, but I teach everybody the same thing.
Right.
You know, I've become my own person. I'm so focused on just getting people back to being balanced. So everybody pretty much gets the same thing. They just get it at different times. Or exercises have to be regressed, or sometimes I can ascend them. But I try to get everybody to a deadlift. I try to get everybody to aggressive rotation. Eventually, you know, over time, I mean, that's the dream, to get somebody to be able to do a walking lunge with rotation. But a lot of these people that are coming to me are older. I get a lot of clients in their 70s. And so you can imagine the process.
Oh, it's a process, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of them are golfers and things like that. So everybody wants to dive into rotation, but they have such terrible forward posture that they can't rotate. So anyway, but my point is, I try to get everybody to the same place. It's the methods that I use to get everybody there is different. Right.
And so people come see you for a variety of different reasons. It could be low back pain, shoulder pain, headaches, pretty much anything, right?
Oh, yeah. The people that I get come to me because they've been everywhere else.
Right.
They heard from somebody that I could help, and there's been no hope. And that's the hardest part of my job at this time in my life, because a lot of people don't know about me. So it's like they'll come in and they'll say, look, I'll give you 6 sessions to get me better, kind of a thing.
Right. And what do you say to that?
Okay.
Yeah, I'll do my best. Yeah.
Like, even if somebody says to me, I can only work with you once a month, I can only come once a year. There are people out there that might say, you know what, I'm not working with you. But I figure any exposure to anything is still a good thing. It's better than nothing.
Love that,
yeah, you just do what you can. You do everything you can for the other person. Yeah, I even have clients that I have to work with on Skype to try to watch them exercise because they live in other parts of the country.
Wow, that's great. And one thing I noticed about you, Chris, is you handle adversity differently than most people I've ever met. And it's a beautiful thing. And if you don't want to talk about this, we don't have to. But what exactly are you going through right now? Because you are a very, very strong woman, and I admire you, and you're one of my heroes.
Oh.
It's amazing to see what you're doing.
Oh, I so appreciate those kind words, Kevin. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
I have just recovered from a second cancer surgery. And, you know, just one of those things, the first time in 2014, my belly was growing, and I went to all different doctors and said, my tummy's growing. And they all kept saying, oh, you know, at your age, it's just a fibroid. You're fine. You're fine. You're fine. Until it was a rare cancer in my uterus that broke a hole through the uterus, and I nearly bled to death. Yeah. So anyway, because that happened, I had a reoccurrence recently, and, you know, I haven't had to do chemotherapy. I've chosen to do chemotherapy twice, and it's been a horrible experience for sure, but I've used it to my maximum. Until cancer came into my life, I never realized how arrogant that I was. I never realized how empty I was as a person. You know, at 52, my body was just perfect. I had a flat abdominal wall, and I would walk around like, you know, how are you eating? Are you eating garbage? What are you eating that for? You know, like I had to be right. I was so much better than them because I had it figured out. So when I walked into the infusion center for my first chemo treatment, I was the fittest one in the room. And that was really very eye-opening for me as a person. So I kind of learned in that moment, you know, when the overweight nurse would come over to help get me set up, when the voice in my head wanted to tell her she should watch her diet, another voice rose up and said, well, you can just shut up, Chris.
Yeah.
She's not in this chair. So, and it's continually teaching me I've always wanted to get softer and softer. I think my childhood and my life forced me to be very aggressive and very, you know, build a wall around myself and protect my heart kind of. Yeah. And this experience is certainly teaching me humility. It's teaching me how resilient that I am. And I just, you know, this is such a great opportunity because I've never really understood how powerful it is for the way you think. So, you know, there's a lot of people out there that talk about, you know, there's a new documentary coming out. It's called Heal. It's probably out already, about how you can heal yourself kind of, but you can't heal yourself unless you can catch how you're unconsciously thinking. Anyway, like I told you about my childhood, I never, at my age now, thanks to a wonderful man, John McMullen at Journeys of Wisdom, he's the most amazing holistic coach or life coach ever because he has a wonderful way of helping you see yourself. And I've been reaching out to him. You know, because the cancer came back again, I realized that there's an emotional connection that I'm not finding. And he was really wonderful. And he doesn't tell me anything. He lets me figure it out for myself. But that what I was telling you about before, how when I was being abused as a child, as a 6-year-old, how I would disassociate from my body. I would leave my body to take the beating. And then I used my body to take the beating for me while I just went out there and had to be a badass, basically. Yeah. So I've literally connected that I've never respected my body. And I'm learning to apologize to it and to love it and respect it now. Yeah. And, you know, it's just a perspective. Now, there's a guy out there, Joe Dispenza. I don't know if you ever heard of him. He's a PhD in neuroscience, and he has a book called Evolve Your Brain and You Are the Placebo. He's a really interesting person. But anyway, he talks a lot about how this work is really important, how I'm learning, you know, like how I had to learn all the other stuff when I was severely injured. I had to learn how to get my body strong again. And now I'm learning how do you heal from something like this, which it's a big deal. You know, it's a serious illness. So how I feel that I have to do this now is I have to start to shift my perspective and to just stay focused in the future, to stay focused in the place where how I want it to be instead of constantly taking score of what it is or how it is. And not to live in fear anymore. Yeah. To try to say, wow, this has given me so much to be grateful for. So instead of being fearful of this cancer coming back, I'm going to live in gratitude of this cancer, bringing me to a place of, you know, helping me understand myself better and appreciating more the people in my life. Yeah. And wanting to live in a place of not needing to prove to everybody how smart I am, but to just enjoy being in a world where I can enjoy relationships with other people and just be myself.
Yeah, that's great.
And I had a really interesting, you know, my hair, of course, is just growing back. And I'm really learning for the first time to be happy in my body. And I took my daughter to the mall yesterday and we were in Macy's, you know, getting clothes for her back to college, whatever. And I had a hat on to cover the stubble on my head. The song came on really loud in the store. She don't know she's perfect. She don't understand she's worth, right? And I was just like, I popped the hat off and I was just like, yeah, you know, just kept it off the whole time, you know?
That's great.
You know, I might never have known that. I might never have had that opportunity to know myself for me, for my own personal experience.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
And it's definitely made you a better person realizing it too, right? Like,
well, it certainly made me feel a lot better about the person that I am. That's for sure. Yeah. I am hopeful that I would really enjoy the opportunity to get through this situation and then dedicate my life to helping other people try to find another perspective or, you know, anybody that's interested. I don't mean I want to walk around and try to shove the knowledge down people. I don't mean it that way, but it would be so nice that if I should interact with somebody in that position, that I would have that opportunity to share something that they might be able to make use of in some way.
Absolutely.
You know, kind of like if you're going to drive to Florida and I tell you about this road that I know that'll save you 5 hours on your trip. And you say, oh, wow, thanks a lot. Yeah. But I don't mean that. Don't want that to sound arrogant. I just mean it from a place that it would be very satisfying for me after going through. And it's very challenging, you know, losing your body when you lose your organs like that. To lose my uterus where my kids grew was very emotional. And a part of me, I think, is still grieving about that. And to lose how you saw your body. And then to just go through all those drugs. Yeah. It's just a lot. So in order to kind of give back or pay it forward a little bit would just feel very satisfying and would reinforce that it was necessary and that it mattered. It meant something. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's almost when you lose your physical body, some attributes you don't know who you are because that's what you were so connected to with. Nothing like you went through, but when I had all my ice hockey concussions, I couldn't work out. I couldn't do a push-up without the whole room spinning, or I couldn't read a book. I lost like 30 pounds, probably 40 pounds. And I just, I couldn't identify with like my body anymore. I kind of like was ashamed of like how skinny I was getting, and like I couldn't do the things I once knew how to do. And I was almost like, who am I now that I can't do anything physical? And I was fortunate enough to get my strength back and be able to work out again and get my life back. It was a rough time period, but now I'm so grateful that I can do push-ups again and I can work out again. And I got that different perspective and it flipped around and it was very rewarding, and I'm glad it happened.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds awesome. It's like you don't have to whip yourself anymore so you can matter and be somebody.
Yeah, definitely.
See, that's awesome. I was so happy to meet you when you came to my studio. And
likewise, yeah.
Yeah, and you're so refreshing that you're, you're a man and you're open. And it's just that's what I mean is I call you like the new macho, a man that can talk about how he felt emotionally, kind of.
Yeah,
That's just so nice,
Definitely.
It's great.
Chris, I wanted to talk about your book you wrote too, because that copy you gave me, I read it and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful book. How would you describe it?
Oh, boy, I so appreciate that with that particular book. But I mean, my kids just had a conversation with me about this book last night. My son is like, you got to rewrite it. And my daughter's like, you got to redo this. And If Babies Were Buddhas is an interesting thing because back in the day when I kind of connected, I had I didn't have a childhood, a very abusive life, and never knew what love was, searching. And thanks to Paul Chek, thanks to John McMullen, thanks to people in my life, I finally was like, oh my God, I never realized I'm somebody else that I never even knew was there. So I put this book out. I thought it was a great way to kind of let people know, yes, you've been beaten. Yes, you've been this. And yes, life isn't giving you what you think, but maybe you're really beautiful. Maybe you're really innocent. Maybe there's something wonderful about you and maybe life really is perfect. But I guess the way that I wrote it, it's like everybody doesn't understand it. Like, people pick it up and they go, huh? And that's the only thing that if I had to do it all over again, I would have taken more time. And I do believe in my heart of hearts that I will at some point redo it and rewrite it. But there are still a lot of people that connect with me, that call me, that order copies, that want to meet me, that there's something about how just the way it's written that my children don't understand lets the person experiencing it have their own experience.
Mm-hmm.
And you can make it into whatever you want it to be, kind of. But it's just supposed to be loving. But that book is nothing compared to what's coming. So there are much better books on the horizon. So,
what do you got coming? Can you talk about that, or?
Yeah, well, you have an octopus on your head.
That's right. I saw that at the end of the first book.
Yeah, but it's even better now. So, but all these things, I was just getting ready to bring a lot of things out when cancer happened again. And it was like, it's been 3 years that I've had to have this, that I've been moving through this place. It's no time to be creative when a Bengal tiger is chasing you down. It's all about your body. It's all about survival. It's all about going within. It's all about doing what you have to do to protect yourself, basically. So all my creativity is kind of just...
Yeah.
But the real offering, this is just a made up title in my head, is called Fill Me Till I'm Empty. And this is a really good creative, it's like a creative memoir, but a lot of, I want to say, what do you call a creative narrative, where I get to add a little bit. But that's a really good story. And of course, I have another one I'm working on, What Your Doctor Won't Tell You and What Your Trainer Doesn't Know.
Wow. That's, I want to read that one. Yeah.
Yeah. I have right now in a place where everything is, some things are almost done. Some things were just drafted. But like I said, I keep bumping into these things that, I think what they're doing is they're making it so that when I finish these projects, that they really will be better. And I won't make the mistake that I did. I mean, If Babies Were Buddhas is really beautiful. It does meet you where you are.
I wouldn't say it was a mistake. I think it's beautifully written and you put it out there. You could have not published it, A lot of people are afraid to publish things or make things because it's not perfect yet and they wait. I mean, you put it out there. You can always redo it.
No, that's true.
I'm glad you put it out there.
Well, I really appreciate that. And, it is supposed to just be loving, and it has a very loving message to it. And the only people that really don't hear the message are the ones that can't even entertain the idea that they could be worthy of love.
Yeah.
But that's very nice. And the Crunches book is actually a really good book. It's got a cover on it that makes it look like a baby book. It's really a joke book for adults. So
that's great.
I have a lot of cleaning up to do, basically. So the good thing is, my business, despite having to go through cancer twice, I've still managed to bring in clients and do the work. Because I'm a single mom, taking care of myself. And so that part of it is, I've built that enough where I hope at some point to be able to finish these projects and share them. So.
Yeah. Well, not only myself, but every client of mine that goes to you just speaks to high heavens of you. Like, it's just unbelievable. And thank you for coming on today and sharing your story and putting all the cards out on the table and being honest. I love that. Thank you so much. Love to have you back anytime, Chris.
Oh, thank you, Kevin. I really appreciate it. And thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone, for listening. My private practice is located in New Jersey at Montclair Upper Cervical Chiropractic. If you have any additional questions about today's podcast, other episodes, or any questions about Blair upper cervical chiropractic in general, feel free to visit my website at drkevinpecca.com or subscribe to my YouTube channel at Dr. Kevin Pecca. Hope you enjoyed the show. Cheers.